Hello, everyone. This is Unfound Live for, what's the date today? August 19th, 2024. I am, of course, Unfound, the podcast host, Ed Densel, and this is, of course, why this show is called Unfound Live. Because it's live. I'm right here in front of you. Everything is happening as I speak. This is not recorded or anything else, except for, of course, you people who listen to this as a podcast the next day or the days after. But everybody that's tuned in here on Monday night, they're getting it all live. And it reminds me of, I know I'm really showing my age, and it's just weird how my memory works. Back in the 80s, LL Cool J on, was it his first album, Radio, or something like that? He talks about during on the of course, like a cassette has one side and the other side used to be before CDs or whatever, and he would say, yeah, this side is liver than the other side. I don't know which album of his that is. It has to be like the first or second one though. But he talks about how this particular side sounds liver than the other side or something like that. Of course, that wasn't live. That was all recorded. But here we are. We're really, 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 truly live. And I have a fantastic show set up for all of you tonight. Just to first go through what is in the headlines tonight for the show, I get a good chance to get an opportunity to go over the Manson type of disappearance. Again, given a recent news story, I'm going to talk about the murder of Jeff Germain. I think that I've already talked about this on the live show before, but since last Monday's show, the trial's gotten started. But in looking up the trial, and I'm not even sure how I came across this, I found some very interesting information that regarding Jeff Germain in Las Vegas being murdered, just some general statistics that are very relevant to what we do here at Unfound. And so I think you're going to be fascinated by this, because as soon as I read this, I was like, man, that is not what I would have suspected. So I think all of you are going to be very surprised by the statistics when I get to them. Also going to go over a story in which a motorcyclist went missing and then he was found alive. I have some things to say about that. And maybe that was on my main mind. Maybe that caught my eye because of the recent David Kallenberger disappearance that we featured on the podcast a few weeks ago. I'm going to talk about, man, this is a big week for me outside of doing the podcast. Because I'm going to be making some appearances on other media. So I want to talk a little bit about that. This is not how I planned it. This is just how it kind of came up. Everything kind of coalescing or intersecting all at the same moment here, like late in August of 2024. What else do I want to talk about? I want to talk about a devoted listener and supporter of Unfound sent me a message this morning about a story out of Arizona that I want to go over. That's very interesting, and it doesn't have to do with a disappearance. It has to do with a murder. And maybe I'll get to some diver stories, and it's just weird how that works. Sometimes I was just mentioning something to my assistants recently. It's weird. I mention it, and then like the exact opposite thing happens. It's so weird. So maybe I'll get into that before I run out of time tonight. So a lot of good things to discuss tonight. I hope I can keep you interested the entire time. And if you have any questions, I don't think that I did. I kind of put the question request up a little late tonight because pretty much since 4 o'clock Eastern today, I've been on the phone. I had 2 new conversations with people today. And no, let me think about this. Well, no, actually, since 6 Eastern. I had a call at 6 this evening. And then I had another call at 7:30 this evening. New disappearances. I've never spoken to these people before. And both calls went really well. I'm really hoping that I and the podcast and you, the audience, can help these people. And I'm hoping if everything goes well, that you will hear from both of these people probably in September sometime. And then I have another call lined up for Thursday. So the reaching out, it's always going on here at Unfound, always looking for new people to talk to, and really spoke to some really good people today. Very sad what they've been going through with their disappearances. And we shall see if we can help them out. So we've got about 7 minutes into the show. Let's see who is in here. And then I am going to just detail some of the things that have gone on in my life since last Monday. A couple crazy things that have gone on. And also here in a bit, I'm going to be telling you about an appearance, if you would maybe like to run into me sometime in the near future. But let's see who's in here. Hello, everything. Once again, I'm wondering, everything, are you ever going to change that? You know, everything, we've known each other, maybe I'll put it this way. Everything, we've known each other so long, I can remember when you were everything 2020. That's how long we've known each other now. Good to see you getting in here first tonight. Charles, how are you? Everybody who is in the chat tonight, everybody wish Charlie a belated birthday. His birthday was, when was it, Charlie? Saturday. So if everybody wants to go out of their way to wish my nephew, my sister's son, Charlie, Charles, he is in the chat. Everybody wants to wish him a belated happy birthday. I'm sure he'd really like that. So, well, good to see you. MW, Margaret, what's going on? Good to see you. Lisa, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a nice start to your week. Hazel from New Zealand. Hazel, I'm going to make your night here in a couple minutes when I talk about trivia. And hello, Charlie, Lisa, Kathy. Good to see you, Kathy. Yeah, people getting in here. MW Margaret, good to see your live show. Yeah, I'm happy you're here too, Margaret. Hello, Paula, Mark, Karen, Jill. I just, in so many words, mentioned you, Jill. We're going to be talking about one of your stories tonight. Mary Jane, everybody should know Mary Jane is a new member of the think tank, and she signed up by doing what it says right there at the bottom of the screen, patreon.com/unfound podcast. Mary Jane got to take in her first think tank last night. She did a great job. Thank you for supporting the podcast, Mary Jane. And yeah, everybody wishing Charlie a happy birthday. Wasn't that nice? I love the Patreon. Thank you, Mary Jane. I tried to do a great job over there. Thank you so much. All right, let's get to some of the things that have gone on in my life since last Monday. Just to fill you in, probably easily the craziest thing is what has gone on in my trivia life since last Monday. On Wednesday, which is the usual trivia day, I got together with my teammates, my brother Brian, his wife Laureen, and a bunch of other people, the usual team members. And we did great, except once again, we blew it on the final question. And so we were second going to the final question, and we ended up finishing dead last. We are completely snake bit on those final questions. In fact, as I stated on Facebook later that night, it's like we're playing trivia in that pit in Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, when he gets thrown in there and then the woman gets thrown in there, like girlfriend gets thrown in there as well. It's like we're playing trivia down in that pit. That is how much we are snake bit regarding these final questions. We just, I don't know what it is. We can answer all the other questions, right? We get to the final question. It's a disaster. I mean, it's just horrible, horrible, horrible. And, smart as we all are and as good as we work together as a team, this has to bounce back, I think, maybe for next season, a couple weeks from now or whenever it's going to be. Because right now we are so far out of first place and out of the running and everything else. It's really pathetic. It is really, really, really pathetic. And I'm as to blame as much as anybody, although I wasn't there for 3 weeks, but still, oh my goodness. Even though we did win like 2 weeks ago, but kind of we lucked into that. Nobody got the final question right. So we kind of just won by default. It was ugly. And just so if you want to know what the final question was, it was multiple choice. But what is the most common last name that starts with W in the United States? What is the most common last name in the United States that starts with the letter W? So like UV, W, XYZ with W. That was the trivia question. We missed it. Should have gotten it, missed it. And like I said, we bet all of our points on it and missed it. So we ended up getting 0 points. And trust me, I take losing at trivia way worse than I do take, losing at disc golf, for example. So there's that. But here is Mark and Indy. You are correct. No, unfortunately, Kathy, that is wrong. Mark is correct. Mark gets it right on the first guess. Good job, Mark. Mark and Indy, good job. We needed you last Wednesday night. But there is a corollary to the story, and it happened on Saturday evening. Now, some of you who follow me, or all of you who follow me on my private Facebook page, then you know where I'm going with this, but I know many of you do not. You're not on Facebook, fine by me. Except you should be on Facebook just to be in the discussion group. But so on Saturday evening, I'm still feeling the effects of losing on Wednesday. And I felt like, you know what? I need to switch it up. I don't know what I need to do. Maybe I need to get my confidence back or something. So on Saturday night, me being the single bachelor that I am, other men are maybe going up to maybe, meet supermodels or something like that. Me, I'm going to a local bar for trivia. And it's a place called Sharks. And I've been there before. I've played trivia there before by myself. And the people who run it are the people who used to run it when it was over at Fat Cats, where I went for many, many, many years before Fat Cats went out of business. His name is Eric. Her name is Maya. And I hadn't seen them for a while, and it was good to see them. And I'm there by myself, 7 o'clock on Saturday evening. And it's a pretty cool place. Not a very big place, but has a nice vibe to it. There's pool tables. Not everybody there is playing trivia, but most of the people are playing. But they have dartboards, and there's, also music playing, everything. But trivia, the main reason most people are there is because of the trivia. So I'm on my team by myself. And I gave myself the team name Mike Honcho, and you can all look that up. And this is how it went. this is how it went. So what they do is, you do like half the questions, and then they give you like the standings at that time. And then you do the second half of the questions and they give you standing. And then there's a final question like on Jeopardy. After the first half of questions, there were 16 teams there. I was in 15th place. I'm not making this up. Out of 16 teams, so there was only one team that was worse than I was. Now, all these other teams, maybe they have 3 or 4 or 5 people on them. I'm there by myself, but there's no way I should be in 15th place. But I was. I was playing horribly. Horribly. I mean, I missed some questions I should have gotten. Well, in the second half, I worked my way up to 9th out of 16, meaning probably in that second half, I got more questions right than most of the teams did to be able to move up that much. So in the second half, kind of got into it a little bit, worked my way up to 9th out of 16. So I'm still not even in the top half. And so the final question comes, and you're able to bet a total of 20 points on it. You can't bet all your points like we do at the other place. The most you can bet is 20 points. With nothing to lose, being that I was like in 9th place anyway, the question was given, and I'm going to give you the question here in a second. And Hazel, like I said, Hazel, you're going to love this question. Read the question. They read the question. I thought, you know what? I think I know this. I bet all the points you could, the maximum of 20. And I ended up winning. It's such crap. It's such bull bleep. You can't even imagine it. I was 9th going to the final question. I ended up winning by 4 points because not one other team got the question right. I was the only person. I was the only team or person who got the question right. So I will give you the question right now. Now, Mark in India has already gotten the first one right from Wednesday night. Williams is the most common last name in the United States that starts with W. My team answered White, and that's not even close to the right answer. But so we missed it, and many teams did answer Williams, of course. Here was the question from Saturday night, and I knew the answer. I kind of wasn't 100% sure, but I was like, I think this is it. All right, here you go, Hazel. Name the body of water between Australia and New Zealand. That was the final question on Saturday night. Name the body of water between Australia and New Zealand. I was the only person or team that got that right on Saturday night. And I ended up winning and got a $50 gift certificate to Sharks. It was just crazy. As soon as they started counting down the top 3, I was doing the calculations in my head. And I was like, nobody else got this right? Really? Nobody else got this question right. And I ended up winning by all by myself. Now, the funny thing is that's how I did it the last time. Hazel, you are correct. The Tasman Sea is the body of water between Australia and New Zealand, and I was the only person who got it right. Crazy. It was crazy. Now, the last time I won over there, it was the same thing. I was way out of first place, and it ended up same thing. I was the only person who got the final question. The other time I won over there as well. And that happened way back in like February or something. It's so crazy. You just don't even know. Because I mean, I really could not have played any worse than I did on I could not have played much worse than I did on Saturday night. I missed all sorts of questions I should have gotten. I'm not going to get into it tonight, some of the questions, but other ones I absolutely, afterwards, like, why did I know that? Why didn't I put the answer? And then I ended up winning anyway. It was such crap. It was such crap. But I'll take it. I love to win. I love to win. And like team name Mike Honcho. Some of you maybe know where that comes from. I love to win, and I won. It was spectacular. It gave me a really good feeling because my trivia feelings have not been very high the last couple weeks, given what has gone on. And like I said, when it comes to my team, being that we've lost and made mistakes and everything, I'm as much to blame as anybody. I'm not putting it on anybody else. We can surely divvy up the blame equally. But I just thought I needed to go out and gain a little confidence. I don't know if I got any confidence from Saturday night or not because I missed so many questions. But I ended up winning, so that doesn't hurt. So what's everybody saying? Yeah, Williams is the most common last name in the United States, starting with W. Marty's here. Hello, Marty. Never know, you might run into it. Sharks, right, Hazel? Yes. Yeah, there's Marty. Once I'm not on a trip, I'll all in for Unfound. Yes, Marty. Thank you for showing up. Samantha, how are you? Good to see you. Hey to you. Go big or go home. That's what I did, Marty. Go big or go home. Hazel did get it right. She should get it right, being that she lives in New Zealand. The Tasman Sea. But it's called the ditch here, across the ditch. I'll remember that, Hazel. Thank you. The Tasman Sea, I would have never gotten that one. Yeah. I don't even know where that kind of just popped into my head. I don't know. I've never been to New Zealand or Australia or anything. I'm not really even, I would not say I'm very much a geography person, but I don't know. Marty gets the Mike Honcho reference. Hazel says, good to hear you won. Perked you up a bit. Yes, it did. It did. Either I wouldn't have come up with it either. Geography. Oh, really, Kathy? You're into geography too. Very good. Did you say the last name question was a multiple choice question? The last name question was multiple choice. Yes, Mark. The four now for the Tasman Sea, that was not multiple choice. That was you had to know it or nothing. With last Wednesday, multiple choice, the answers, the four different answers were Wilson, White, Williams, and Walker. And we picked White. Of course, we were wrong. Thank you for clarifying that, Mark. I'll try to change it. Good stuff, Ed. Okay. Hey, Sarah, how are you? Good to see you. Am I brilliant? I don't know, Sarah. There are some things that I'm creepily good at. I won't deny that. But trust me, when I won on Saturday night, I even told the people who were running with, that was total crap. I mean, I'll take it. I'll take the win. You have to take these wins when you get them. But that was a lot of luck. And the funny thing is, I asked my dad that same question. He got it in like 2 seconds. So I got it. My dad got it, but nobody else playing trivia at Sharks that night, and there were 15 other teams knew it. I don't know. But my dad's pretty good at trivia. So there you go. So that's what's going on with me on Saturday night. I love winning. All right. So that's the trivia. And, me and my team will try again on Wednesday night, try to get back into the win column. But as far as the overall standings for this 3-month period over at Finley's, where we play on Wednesdays now, I mean, we are so bad. It's just so bad. It's bad. It's bad. All right. I want to throw this out there. On less than 2 weeks, I will be going to Orlando to play in a disc golf tournament. I'll be playing Labor Day weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 1 round each day. And I have made a decision that I will be going to a very well-known karaoke bar to sing. I've not done this. I've been working on my voice. I practice my singing 5 days a week. The only days I don't do that are Sundays and Mondays because of all the talking I have to do in those 2 days between the think tank and this live show. But the other 5 days of the week, I go through a practice session 5 days a week that usually lasts about an hour and a half. Over there in Orlando, there's a place called O'Shucks Irish Pub or whatever. And it's not too far away. It's within walking distance where I'm going to be staying over there for this tournament. And so I can guarantee you I will be going over to this very well-known karaoke place to sing and see how well I can do singing in public for the first time. My voice is still nowhere where it needs to be for other things that I want to do. But for karaoke purposes and picking up particular songs, I think I'm ready to, dip my toes into the water. So if anybody's going to be over in Orlando that weekend, I'm just throwing that out there. And I will be there from Thursday through Monday. And karaoke starts at O'Shucks at 9 at night. So there you go. And the place is so much into karaoke that they actually have the list of all their songs online. And it's very, very thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of songs. And luckily there are many that I really want to sing that I can sing. So I've already looked through some of the list already and it kind of already picked up the songs I'm going to do. So there you go. I'll be there by myself, so I don't know if I'm going to get any video or not. But if I do, and I think if it's good enough, I may just post it on my private Facebook page. So just saying, if there's anybody listening to this who is in the Orlando area, as an Unfound fan, maybe wanted to run into me somewhere, that's where I will be able to be found Labor Day weekend when I'm not playing disc golf. And I'm only playing one round a day. So I'm going to have Unfound work to do, of course, as well. But like I said, this place is like a 10-minute walk from where I'm staying. So I'm going to make an appearance. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We shall see. But if I'm just throwing it out there. If anybody's going to be over there, lives in that area, not doing anything that weekend, you might run into me if you show up at that pub. Hazel says Tasmania is part of Australia. Yes, maybe these thoughts were in the recesses of her mind. It's very possible. Very, very possible. Yes. Marty says, oh, man, I love it. Got to let us know how you do. I will do that, Marty. Like I said, maybe I'll get it on video. And even if I get it on video, I can't guarantee that I'll make it public. It depends on how well I do. Marty says, if I were in Orlando, I would be in. Big karaoke fan here. All right. Marty, what do you like to sing when you go to karaoke? Maybe that's what I should throw this out to all of you. If all of you were to go to karaoke or have gone to karaoke, what are the songs you like to sing? There we go. What songs do you like to sing when you go to karaoke? Marty, what's the name of the bar? They may post some singers on their social media. The name of the bar is called O'Shucks Irish Bar. It's on International Drive in Orlando. And Charlie, I'm just thinking of this. Your mother's going to be in Orlando in October, right, Charlie? And you're coming down? Well, we'll see how this time goes. Maybe I'll have to make a second appearance there. Maybe, right? Am I right about that, Charlie? I think I am. Because I'm planning to go over there to see her, and I know you might be there too. So maybe we can make that happen. All right, let's get to the true crime. Being that we're now a half hour in, let's get started with all of the true crime stuff tonight. We will start with the Melinda Lopez poll. A lot of different possibilities with Melinda's disappearance. It could be It doesn't even have to be anybody. It very well could be that Melinda disappeared all on her own. But we had so many characters in that episode between, of course, Joe or Joe Quinn, April, Adelaide, TJ, Lenny, and all of them in their own way have stories or have told stories or have said things that could make you think that at least one of them had something to do with their disappearance. And we even have to be open to the idea that maybe a group of them, maybe not all of them, but maybe a group of them even could have had something to do with Melinda's disappearance. Maybe not necessarily murder, but maybe an overdose cover-up or something like that. Very, very, very difficult to kind of nail that all down with the facts that are known at this time. We just have to remember this is a disappearance that isn't even 4 years old, and we shouldn't be surprised if maybe additional facts come out, maybe from the episode coming out or something. So we just have to remember that. But the Lopez poll, always posted in the discussion group. You know, I post those every week. It was very simply, who was Lenny texting with that day where he says he's texting with Melinda, she's texting back with him, and she said that she wanted to move out of Joe Quinn's place, but then when Lenny showed up, she wouldn't come out, and then Lenny ended up leaving, and of course nobody heard from Melinda ever again. Of course, we have to be open to the possibility maybe it was Melinda. Was it not Melinda? Was it somebody else? What was it? What was going on here? So that's what I asked. Who was Lenny texting with that day? Amazingly, this was a real shocker for me. Although it's something that I've entertained myself, but I can't believe this was the number one answer. The number one answer in the discussion group was Lenny manufactured those texts on his own. 40, not a majority, but what do they call that? Plurality. 44% of the people, the responders in the discussion group on Facebook, said Lenny manufactured those texts himself, meaning, I guess, that Lenny actually had Melinda's phone and was texting back and forth between himself. 44%. Amazing. Now, if you're wondering, being that it was only 44%, what were the other answers that were popular? Let me see here. Next, so 45% was Lenny, he manufactured the whole thing. At 36%, it was somebody who wasn't Joe or Melinda. And third, with 18%, it was people said, you know what? It actually was Melinda. Shockingly, only 1% of the people who voted said it was Joe. That is a real shocker. That has to be one of the, you know, as far as in my mind, that has to be one of the most shocking polls that I've ever conducted. The answer, it's not a shocking poll. The answers, the results of the poll have to be some of the most shocking results I've ever seen. 45% say Lenny manufactured the whole thing. 36% said somebody else besides Joe or Melinda did it. And April too. And then 18% said actually it was Melinda, and only 1% saying Joe. I was really thinking that everybody would say, you know, most people would say Joe. Just amazing. Just amazing. I'm just, you know, I'm not here to necessarily judge. All I'm telling you is that I am surprised. Now, as far as you're wondering about the think tank, that is, if you signed up, like I said early on, Mary Jane, who is in the chat tonight, she is our newest think tank member, and I know she had a fantastic time last night talking in depth about Melinda's disappearance. If you'd like to do the same and follow in Mary Jane's and many others' footsteps, just look at the bottom of the screen, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, and sign up at the top level. If you sign up for a whole year at once, you get a discount. And you get a bunch of other stuff when you sign up at that level as well. In the think tank last night, I guess kind of like the poll in the discussion group, very mixed. Really, really mixed. There was no consensus. I think there were 7, 8, or 8 people in the think tank last night. There was no consensus. Even if there was one answer more common than the other, it was very, very mixed between thinking maybe TJ did it or Joe did it. It actually was Melinda or April. It was very, very mixed, very much like the discussion group. Although surely in the think tank, Lenny manufacturing the whole thing was not a common answer. So it was very mixed. As for me, in the blog that I write at patreon.com/unfound podcast, to listen or write, all you have to do is sign up at the $2 a month level. I decided that it was TJ. And my reasoning, well, you can go read or listen to the blog to find out why that was my reasoning. But very simply, he was the guy in Melinda's life. We don't know where he went when she went missing. He conveniently has this alibi of being in Montana, and then on top of everything else, as you heard in the interview, when Brittany and Jolene started sniffing around about all of this, TJ says, you got to stay away from it. So that's simply why, in my mind, it was most likely TJ. But there was certainly a lot of other things to talk about regarding Lenny, the FaceTiming, the audio recording of maybe Melinda being on that audio recording, her Facebook page picture changing, on and on and on. And I get into all of it. So if you're interested in that sounds interesting to you, patreon.com/unfound podcast. And it's only $2 a month. At the $5 a month level, you get all that plus the Found series that I do, and a couple other things that I do there. And then at the $12 a month level, you get, in addition to all that, the think tank, which, like I said, is a very, very exclusive club. There is no if you go to the club and you have to stand along the velvet rope line, then you get into the club. But then there's like a special room for higher, more influential people. And then there's like a back room. And then there's even more exclusive place behind that back room. Well, the think tank would be like the last most exclusive room at the club. All right, that's what we're doing there. If you'd like to be part of it, on patreon.com/unfound podcast. So that's the disappearance of Melinda Lopez. A lot of different possibilities. This is one of those where it really challenges our ability to examine these disappearances and really try to narrow things down. And what was interesting as I was working on Melinda's disappearance is that it's amazing how many disappearances that we've featured, like Melinda's, like with women with drug issues or something like that have not been solved. Hardly any of those have been solved that Unfound has featured. On the other hand, we have Noah Davis, kind of like Melinda, but a guy. Jay Lushball, solved. Kind of like Melinda, but a guy. Robbie Hurt, kind of like Melinda, but a guy. Those are all solved. Maybe we could put even Daniel Villarreal in that, maybe if we wanted to as well. Whereas when we look at those women like Melinda or Melinda herself, none of those have been solved. Something to keep our eye on. I don't think it's statistically, I don't know if we're to the point that it's statistically meaningful yet, but it's certainly something to keep our eye on regarding this. Very, very interesting. So let's see what everybody's saying while I'm talking here. Hazel says, oh boy, I'm not much of a singer, but I love disco dance songs plus old soul. So I sing Heaven Might Be Crazy and Angel to Little Dinks, My Puppy. Lisa, I've only done karaoke once. I sang In Spite of Ourselves by John Prine, which is definitely PG rated. I was in the Dominican Republic. Yeah, you don't want to do that on U.S. soil, Lisa. And Rum is to Blame. I don't even know that song. Marty, karaoke song. I have a bunch. Anything that gets the crowd going. Been on a big Nathaniel Ratcliffe kick recently. Last few times I got everyone going. Works for me. I don't know who that is either. Tasmanian Sea, you are correct. That is the answer. Everything. Marty says, I don't believe Lenny's story at all. Hazel says the texting is something April would do. Hazel says, I think it's more of a woman thing to do that, but I realize men have impersonated partners they disposed of quite a bit. They have. Yeah, it was great having Mary Jane. I agree. It was great having Mary Jane. Marty says, I love the Found series. I do too, Marty. I've got to start working on this month's. Is there whiskey and cigars in the VIP room? Yeah, if you want to smoke at home. The Unfound headquarters is a non-whiskey, non-cigar smoking area here in Clearwater Beach, though, Hazel. But it is a VIP room. Rockford, I failed to mention this in the think tank, but part of my reasoning for a voluntary new life scenario is that I didn't buy the fell into a bad crowd idea. I'm not sure the crowd was that bad. Okay. Very good, Rockford. Also part of the think tank, mentioning something I guess you forgot to say last night. Very good, Rockford. Thank you. Kristen Gonzalez, kind of like Joy. Kind of like J. Rob. Yeah. I think so, Kathy. Kristen Gonzalez, kind of like Jay, Robbie, and Nil. Do you think so, Kathy? Okay. Very good. So there you go. That is Melinda Lopez, and I'll continue to keep an eye on it as best I can after 340 some disappearances. And on that note, of course, we have another update episode coming out, not this Friday, but next Friday. That will be update episode number 18. Yep, it's crazy. And I continue to say I'm just not sure how many updates I'm really going to have. This summer, like I said, since the end of April, things have seemed to be pretty slow regarding new revelations, big revelations in the disappearances that Unfound has featured, whether on the podcast or Unfound now. So I just don't know. Some of these update episodes can go like 3.5 hours. I don't think that's going to be that way next Friday, but maybe I'll surprise myself. But I don't think so. I've not really dug deep into all of it yet. Maybe I'll be surprised. On to another item regarding all of Unfound's disappearances. The Unfound database, little by little, getting put together, and it's going very well. I'm very pleased with how it's coming along. There is no rush on it. Of course, we're gonna take our time. We're gonna do it right. And even when all the information gets done, it still has to be, somebody's going to have to put it into kind of a database format. And I think I already have somebody that's going to be able to do that, but I think that's going to take some time too. So this is certainly a project that will not be done until next year. And when I say next year, I don't mean January. I mean maybe like a year from now. But you got to start somewhere. So it's coming along great. And if you're wondering, well, what are you trying to do with this, Ed? Well, there's already NamUs and there's already the Charlie Project. Well, we're approaching these disappearances. We're getting much more into the minutia of these disappearances. And we're looking at, did a car go missing with the missing person? Is that car still missing or not? for example. We're going to have a category of, if this person suffered from a mental illness, well, what was it? Was it paranoid schizophrenia? Was it bipolar disorder? We're going to do that. We're going to be looking at addictions, and we may even get into a standpoint, look at it from, well, was this a meth addiction? Was it heroin addiction? Was it alcohol? Or, for now, though, we're noting that is going to be something that's going to go along with that missing person. And so you're going to have all of these boxes and categories that are going to be able to be checked off. So you can go into this database and say you want to look up any disappearance where, this is just very simply, the car is still missing with the person and the person was suffering from a bipolar disorder. You click those 2 boxes, any unfound disappearance like that will pop up. It's like that. And so I think right now we have 35 different categories. So, of course we're going to have age and all those things, but with NamUs, it's like age, it's location, might have hair color and all these things. And as you've probably already noticed, really don't get into descriptions. You'll notice that it's never been my thing to ask, well, does the person have any identifying tattoos? What is the person's hair color? I think all of that stuff is highly, highly, highly overrated. Obviously, if remains are found, then did the person have a hip replacement or a rod in their back or something? Then it becomes relevant. But for what we do at Unfound, it's just not relevant for the way I approach this. And so even though you see that on NamUs, that kind of stuff, not as important to me. What I'm looking for by putting the database together is looking for patterns on why people disappear that is not obvious to the naked eye. Where you can start playing around with all the different categories, and you may find some items that are related to each other that don't seem to be related to each other. And that's really what I'm looking for. You can't do that with NamUs. It's just biological statistics: height, weight, age, location, hair color. And I know they note if maybe a car is missing or something, but I don't even think that's something you can even mark off on NamUs. So, you can, race, of course, and all these things. I'm looking for so much more than that. I want to be able to look at everybody who went missing that was diagnosed with bipolar disorder or an addiction, or, talking about roommates. Well, if the person had a roommate, was it a boyfriend? Was it a girlfriend? Was it a spouse? Was the person living at home with relatives or something like that? All of that. And so it's coming along, going to take some time, as you can imagine. 340 some disappearance in. You got 35 at least categories for every disappearance. It's a lot of work, but there's no rush. And it is going to be one of its kind, and I think it's going to be something that's really going to open everybody's eyes regarding disappearances, for sure. That girl that ran by a creek, drug addict. Oh yeah, Kristen Gonzalez, right? Yeah, that was an Unfound Now. Yep. Wasn't thinking about the Unfound Nows, Kathy, but yes, certainly that was an Unfound Now episode, and certainly you could certainly put those all together. Certainly, sure. Marty, I just think it's hard to keep track of people like Kristen. Yeah. Rockford, weren't we due for a slow one given the flurry of developments in the last couple of updates? I guess if you're playing the odds, Rockford, I guess maybe there has to be some bounce back once in a while. None of this is, steady. So if you have a lot of updates, I guess statistically, I guess you're going to have a downturn once in a while. I guess what I'm saying is this summer, just my perception is this summer was slower than most. Now, maybe I realize, maybe I remember like last year, I was thinking, man, I don't know how many. And then like 2 weeks before the update episode was supposed to come out, like 3 big things happened or something. But if something's going to happen, big, notable big things in some of Unfound's disappearances, they better happen soon because the episode comes out the last Friday of this month. Of course, anything when I say big things happening, of course, I'm not necessarily bad news. Maybe some people are found alive. That's great. That's great. Fine. Of course, that's spectacular. Lisa says that database is going to be amazing. I bet we learn a lot from it. I'm hoping to learn a lot too. Mari says that's often put differently. It's victimology based, not based on superficial characteristics. Thank you, Rock, for putting it in a nutshell. Thank you. Okay. A couple other things before I get to some of these stories that I've already mentioned. I've been told Julia Cowley sent me an email today. On Wednesday, I think it's going to be in 2 parts. I think. The first part of the interview that I did with her. So she came on Unfound. You heard it from some weeks ago, like a month ago. The first part of where she interviews me is coming out on Wednesday. So 2 days from now. So that would be August 21st. And the Consult podcast, I don't believe they have a YouTube channel. So you are going to have to find that episode maybe on iTunes, of course on iTunes or Spotify. But if you don't have those apps for whatever reason, you're not signed up or whatever, the Consult does have a website, and I do think that the episodes play there. So you will want to check that out. When I did the interview, like I said, it's been a while now. I thought it went real well, and Julie did tell me that in the email she said that I'm fascinating. So I guess she thinks that the interview went well too. Of course, I responded to her. I really appreciate that. So nice of you to say. If only single women thought that I was fascinating, and I put a little ha 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 after that. But that's coming out on Wednesday. Like I said, I think she's dividing it into 2 parts like I did with hers, but of course that all came out the same day. So I'm thinking that the first part will come out this week and the second part next week, because the Consult is going to a weekly podcast. At this point, it's been every other week. And I guess starting this week, they're going every week, like Unfound is. So part 1 this week, part 2 next week, I think. Or maybe it'll play on Wednesday. All I know is it's coming out this Wednesday. Check it out, please. And go over to the Consult, give it a great review. And I'm hoping you've already checked out Julia's podcast already, given that they do such great work over there. They've covered at least 2 of Unfound's disappearances, Jody Huisentruit and Bill Underhill. So you should already be familiar with that podcast. So please check that out. And I'm going to be very interested to listen to myself as well, even though I know what I already said, but I'll be listening too. And like I said, everything seems to be converging at the end here of August of 2024. Not only is that the Consult, my interview on the Consult coming out, but this coming Sunday on the Oxygen Network, August 25th, the first episode of Girl on the Milk Carton is coming out. And yes, that is the coverage of the murder of Janelle Matthews. That is the one where I flew out in December last year to Greeley, Colorado, and was interviewed. And as I continue to say, I don't know how much of an appearance I'm going to make in there. I don't know how they're going to portray me. When it gets into the editing room, they can do anything with anything. I really, 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 really don't know what to expect. I really don't. In fact, I have to say I'm maybe even a little scared regarding it. But it's coming out Sunday. I have a duty to talk about it. And once it comes out, then I'll be able to tell you some of the things that went on behind the scenes when I did get interviewed. Because, like I said, I've kind of just nibbled around the edges to this point because I'm not allowed to say anything specifically. So once it comes out, no matter how I am portrayed, I will talk about how, kind of some of the things that went on behind the scenes. And I'm just one of many, 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 many people they interviewed. But I believe I'm one of the few who, takes a contrary, let's just say a contrary position on everything. So we'll see. But like I said, all this is happening, somebody else's podcast and on TV. I didn't plan it this way. This is just how it worked. It worked out. Stephanie asks, was there a glut of updates post-COVID, Stan? Could it be why it seems slow this year? Stephanie, that's a spectacular question. Really, really great question. That's really not how I remember it, Stephanie. It seems to me through the COVID time, let's just say of 2020, it didn't seem to me be slow. It didn't seem so. Although the perception was that less work and things were being done, it seems to me those update episodes, whatever the numbers they would have been at the time, were substantial. But you'd have to go back, like I said, off the top of my head, it's really hard for me to remember. I just have this feeling that this summer was slow. And it very well may be, like, for example, I'll just pick one. Update episode number 12. Maybe it was slow too. I don't specifically remember that. But it very well could be going back to the COVID time. Maybe it was a little slower than normal, and I just didn't realize it. You have to remember that's 4 years ago now. We also have to remember there's, that's 4 years of disappearances more. So roughly, let's say 40 disappearances. So that's like 160 more disappearances. So during COVID, we were still at only like disappearance like 180. And now we're at 340. So there were fewer disappearance staff updates on. So it all has to be figured into there. But Stephanie, that's a spectacular question. Really good question about COVID and updates and everything. Jill's back. Going to get to your story, Jill, before I'm done tonight, I hope. Kathy says we're all fascinating. Yes, we are all fascinating, Kathy. That's right. We are all fascinating. All right, let's get to this. I want to go over this Jeff German story. And I have the story here, but being that I'm already an hour in, I want to just kind of get to the meat of why I even put this story in there. And I know, like I said, months ago, I think I had talked about Jeff German being murdered, Las Vegas reporter. Never met him while I was there, but I surely read a lot about what he wrote. The biggest thing that he did, the way I would say it, is he was one of the reporters that exposed all these county commissioners getting these bribes from these by these strip club owners back in the mid 2000s. It was called Operation G-Sting or G-String. I think it's called G-Sting or something like that. And a bunch of Clark County commissioners got caught taking bribes because there was this law they wanted to enact about strip clubs and how the strippers, as far as what they're allowed to touch on a customer and how a customer is allowed to touch them and everything. And of course, strip club owners want, let's just admit it, they want everybody to be touched as much as possible. And that's why so many strippers end up being prostitutes. It's just stay for what it is. Well, the county commissioners were talking about passing some law, and all of a sudden the strip club owners start throwing all these money behind the scenes under the table, and they got caught. And all of these people went to jail. And there was this one guy in particular, Dario Herrera, who was seen as like a big time up and comer in the Democrat Party in Nevada. And it turned out that the way I remember it is that he was taking this money, but he wasn't just taking that. I mean, he was married. I think that he had a child on the way or something. He was getting being set up with strippers. And I remember stories of these guys being out on a golf course somewhere and getting serviced, let's just say, out on a Las Vegas golf course. I mean, there was some crazy, crazy, crazy stories. And Jeff German was one of these people who was on that. That was his job. He was looking for corruption. He wrote a lot about the mob when the mob was more prominent in Las Vegas. Well, he got murdered, if you didn't know. And this trial is just starting, and the person on trial was a guy that was part of Las Vegas government, and he was in and Jeff had been getting word from some people who had worked in that department that this guy was really bad, and there was sexual harassment claims, all these things. And Jeff just kept writing about this guy, kept digging up more and more and more, and this guy didn't like it. So the prosecution believes as that this guy, and his name is Robert Tellis, Telles, went over to Jeff German's house. Jeff was outside, I don't know, doing some land, cutting the grass or something. The prosecution claims it was Robert Tellis guy, who was an official in Las Vegas government, went up there and killed him. And so that trial is starting now. Is it on court TV or something? I don't know. But this is a big deal. Jeff German was probably the most well-known reporter in all of Las Vegas because he had been around for so long because of the work that he did and the people he was going after and the stuff that he exposed and everything. Well-known. Murdered in his front yard in I think 2022. So this is going to trial. But the reason I'm bringing this up again is not necessarily because the trial's starting. But I saw this, and I do kind of keep track of like Vegas news these days. I have to admit, I keep track more of Vegas news than I do Tampa news. But in doing so, I came across this very interesting statistic that I think all of you are going to be very, very interested in this. I was shocked by this. Maybe you'll be shocked too. In writing this story, this one story that I picked out, whoever wrote the story, I write it down here. But it was noted that since 1992, so 32 years ago in the United States, I'm not talking about Europe or New Zealand or Australia or Asia or anything else, just in the United States. So the 48 lower in Alaska and Hawaii. 17 reporters in the United States have been murdered since 1992. 17. I don't know if that's a big number or not. 17 reporters, and Jeff German is in that number, I think. So it's either 17 or 18. 17 reporters have been murdered in the last 32 years. Keep forgetting. I can't believe 1992 is 32 years ago. I can't believe it. 32 in the last 32 years, 17 American reporters have been murdered. Now, some of them, there was that one. Remember? I don't know if you remember it. There was the young woman who was on scene interviewing somebody, and a guy who used to work at the station showed up with a gun. And the cameraman caught the whole thing, and the cameraman ended up getting murdered too. Do you remember that? The guest, whoever was getting interviewed, did not get hurt, but the reporter and the cameraman got shot to death. Do you remember that? That happened like fairly recently, within the last 10 years. For example, those two murders are in the statistics. So 17 reporters have been murdered since 1992. If you can believe it, here's the shocking number. Of those 17, 15 of them were work related. That, I could not believe it. And they actually had the list. And I went through the list looking at each one of these, and that's what it is. 17 reporters have been murdered since 1992, 15 work related. Meaning the other 2 reporters who were murdered, I guess it must have been a domestic violence situation or a random type of murder or something like that. But 15 of them were murdered on the job, or were murdered due to the work they were doing. And of course, with Jeff German, that's certainly the situation. He was, and I'm inclined to believe that this Telus guy did it. Certainly, Jeff German murdered because of the work he was doing, of the reporting that was doing. That's what we're talking about here. I was shocked. I was really, really shocked, especially considering that with the work we here do at Unfound, we talk so much about relationships. Of course, we could talk about business relationships, and certainly maybe we could see some of these disappearances could be related to the work people were doing. Maybe you think of a John Spirit. Did his disappearance have something to do with his work, with his business partner? Possible. I don't know if I believe that, but I think a lot of people do believe that. So maybe that, but really when we're talking about disappearances, it seems so much of it is more romance involved, or domestic violence, or something like stalking, something like that. Rarely does it have to do with anything, the work that those people are doing, whether it's a reporter or a police officer or a teacher or anything else, or any other profession. I was shocked by this. Now, here's the interesting thing. Jody Huisentruit is not in these statistics. So if you're thinking, well, 17 reporters have been murdered, well, Jody's in there. She's not. Even though we all know she was abducted. Even though we all know the odds of her being alive today is practically zero. Theoretically zero. Even though there are a lot of reasons to believe that somebody abducted her with the plan of killing her, maybe not that day, but eventually. All of that makes sense. She is not in these statistics, which also I find very interesting, which means for this list, they're only considering murders where bodies have been found. And I think Jody is the only person in media or report or something then who was abducted and is still missing. This just shows you, how rare her disappearance is. But I guess what it also says is that we should not take for granted, maybe, I think what I'm saying here is, even though it's been out there, that it's been discussed on Web Sleuths and Reddit and everywhere else, could it be that Jody was abducted because of work that she was doing? There's no proof to support that. She wasn't working on any mob story from Mason City, Iowa, or anything else. But if we were just to go by the statistics of reporters getting murdered, Freudian slip there. The statistics tell us that more statistically likely, is that Jody Huisentruit was abducted due to the work that she was doing, and not because it was a stalker or John Van Slace or anybody else. That, to me, being that this is the work that I know I'm all geeked out about this is the stuff that I find so interesting about the work that I do. That you have Jody Huisentruit. She is a reporter, had that job for a while. That was going to be the job seemingly that she wanted to keep, even though she maybe talked about maybe someday being on the Today Show, which I don't know if that's really a reporter job. It's certainly a host of a show. I don't know if you're reporting, though. But so we automatically think, well, some people think it was John Van Sice, which means it was romantically motivated. Some people think, well, it was somebody who saw her on TV, became obsessed, and abducted her. Certainly possible. It was some guy that was in her life that Jodi never told anybody about. That's certainly possible. But we all go toward the angle of relationship, romance, passion, obsession. Statistics say more likely that she was murdered due to the work that she was doing. That's a weird one. It's something I never would have suspected. Obviously, anybody can be murdered. Anybody can be murdered. Engineers, teachers, police officers, of course. But you just wonder when we start breaking down people's professions, whether it's reporting or police officers or engineers, truck drivers, and everyone else, any kind of job out there, how often are these people murdered due to their work? It doesn't seem like that would be that common. But for reporters, I guess it is. Like I said, 17 reporters have been murdered since 1992 in the United States. Jodi Huisentruit is not on that list, not included. 15 of those were work-related. Crazy. I thought you would enjoy that statistic. It's all horrible. But so just add that to your toolbox, that statistic to your toolbox. When you're thinking about disappearances in certain professions, of course, if you're thinking about Jodi Huisentruit's disappearance, and also think about how dangerous the job of reporter is. Think about it. And like I said, I did look up the list. I didn't go through. Now, you should know, getting back to the murder that I talked about, where the young woman was right there on camera and it was live, and she gets murdered and the cameraman gets murdered. That was work related, but it wasn't due to the story or any particular story that she was doing. It was work related because the guy was jealous of her. You know, he had gotten fired from that TV station. He wanted revenge. And I guess he knew that this young woman and the cameraman were going to be there. And that is how he ended up taking out his revenge. So work related, but not specifically aimed at them. They were just convenience. If it would have been some other reporter out somewhere that day, that person would have gotten murdered. So that also has to be taken into account. This was not necessarily personal what happened with that particular reporter and the cameraman. For these others, I didn't look into them deeply enough to be able to tell. Was it the same thing? Was this more revenge workplace type of thing, like going postal or something? Or was it actually something that a reporter was working on? Wonder. I don't know. I have to do a deeper dive into that sometime when I have the time. Let's see what everybody's saying here. Mark says, I've always heard Crazy Horse was very connected in both law enforcement and otherwise. Yeah. Mark, Crazy Horse 2. Yeah. Lots of. That's Vegas, baby. That's Vegas. Paula says, I've been watching and listening to the trail. Very good, Paula. I think you told me you were going to be doing that. Hello, Gina. What's going on with you? Or Gianna. Good to see you tonight. Thank you for joining in the live show. I hope you were enjoying it. And hey, be careful what you report, I guess. That's a great point regarding Jodi and stats. Yeah, it's something. Rockford, it turns out to be an obsessed fan, which is very much on the table, would fit the statistic, right? I guess it's work related. I don't know how you'd Rockford. I'd have to look into these other ones and see how they define work related. My definition of work related might be different from whoever put this this little table together, these statistics together. I guess you could call that work related. I wouldn't call that work related, but somebody might. Somebody, when I think work related, I think about workplace violence, like what occurred there. I think about a reporter doing a job, and digging up a lot of bad stuff, like Jeff Durman did, and paid for it. Whereas, for example, Rockford, if it was a teacher teaching some evening class to adults, and one of the students in it becomes obsessed with this teacher and then murders, was that work related, or is it just because the guy is romantically obsessed with the female teacher and has to have her, and she doesn't want to go along with it? Is that work related? I would not say so, but being that it happened, if the thing started at the school, maybe some people would call that work related. I would not, but Joanne asks, hello, Joanne. What's going on with you? Good to see you. And with the J, Joanne with the big red J there. Ed, how do you tune into the consult on YouTube? They don't have a YouTube channel, Joanne. You either it will be on iTunes or Spotify, and I guess other podcast platforms, or you can go to the consults. They do have a website, and I believe all of the episodes play there. But I do not believe that they have a YouTube channel where all the episodes, like we have, of course, the Unfound podcast channel on YouTube where all the episodes play. I don't think that Julia and the other hosts there do that. So if you don't have iTunes, you don't have Spotify, then I would go to their website when it comes out Wednesday. That would be my recommendation. All right, so there you go. Fascinating to me, stats on reporters being murdered. I would have never expected that. All right, let's go to this. I want to do a little rundown on the man said disappearance type. This is a story. I've known about this disappearance for a while. I don't think that I ever tried contacting anybody in her family, but certainly when I saw her name pop up recently, I was like, I know that disappearance. And her name is Dee Warner. A body believed to be that of Dee Warner, who's been missing since April of 2021, has been found. Michigan State Police state an autopsy is needed for official confirmation. Remains were found during a search of a property belonging to Dale Warner, Dee's husband, who has been charged in her death. An autopsy on the body believed to be Dee Warner is going to take place tomorrow, Tuesday, August 20th. The First District of the Michigan State Police issued a statement to update what troopers term an ongoing investigation into the disappearance of Dee Warner, stating that during the execution of a search warrant in Lenawee County on property belonging to Dale Warner, human remains were found. Officials were out on two properties belonging to Dale Warner on Friday, August 16th. A family spokesperson said the family was notified late Saturday night that a body was found in an anhydrous tank, which looks similar to a propane tank, but holds anhydrous ammonia. The tank that the body was found in appeared to be empty of ammonia at the time of the body's encasement, family members told Channel 11. In addition, indications are that the body was well preserved, probably due to the body not being exposed to the elements and a lack of oxygen in the tank. Family members also said that it appears that whoever put the body in the tank re-welded it shut and painted over it. A family spokesperson said the discovery of the body happened as part of officials' continuing investigation of Dee's disappearance and was not based on information offered up by Dale Warner. The spokesperson also says the discovery was not the result of an outside tip being called in. The family stated that the body was found in a secluded area on their Paragon Road property. The family further stated with the autopsy scheduled for Tuesday, they are hoping to learn a cause of death. Okay, and her husband, Dale Warner, was charged with murder and Dee Warner's disappearance and is scheduled to appear in a pretrial hearing on Wednesday, September 4th. Dale, who Michigan State Police have previously said is the only person of interest in Dee's death, pled not guilty to murder and tampering with evidence charges. On Friday, this past Friday, authorities executed additional search warrants at 2 properties regarding belonging to Dale Warner. Authorities at the scene confirmed the search was connected to Dale Warner. The Warner family farm and a property on Paragon Road was the focus of Friday's search. The family has been outspoken on its suspicion Dale Warner killed his wife since her disappearance more than 3 years ago. The family was offering a reward of $50,000 for information leading to her remains. Okay. So you can see maybe already why I call this the man said type of disappearance. But if you're not clear on that, I'm now going to read a couple paragraphs from the Charlie Project entry that has been on that website since Dee went missing. All right, and I think you'll get a good feeling for this, and then I'll have more to say about it. From the Charlie Project, I'm not reading the whole entry. I'm just going to read, it's like 4 or 5 paragraphs. I've only picked out 2 of them. Her husband, Dale Warner, said he left the house at 6:30 a.m. and at the time, Dee was asleep on the couch. When he came back home, she was gone. She has been never heard from again. She left all the family vehicles behind. And since her disappearance, there has been no activity on her cellular phone, bank account, or credit cards. Dee ran her own trucking company and agricultural business at the time of her disappearance. She had 4 adult children and 1 9-year-old daughter. Her loved one stated her marriage was extremely troubled. Dale allegedly stalked her and put a tracking device on her car. There had been episodes of domestic violence, and Dee wanted a divorce. Now, in a previous paragraph that I did not copy here, Dale admitted early on that, yeah, he and Dee had like the biggest argument ever or something like that. So if you're ever wondering what I mean by the man said type of disappearance, this is what I'm talking about. Where, and it's usually, of course, recently we had the woman said when we think about the disappearance of Shannon Collins, and I'll get into a few more names here in a moment. But this is what I'm talking about. We have a woman who went missing. We have a husband telling a story that cannot be verified. You know, once again, how many times do we hear, yeah, I went to work, and when I came home, she was gone. I went to bed. She was up, staying up late night and watching TV. When I woke up, she was gone. I was here, and I fell asleep. I took an afternoon snooze. She was here. I woke back up. She was gone. I went to the convenience store and came back. She was gone. I went out for a couple hours to the gym, came back, she was gone. Even though her cell phone's still there, her car's still there, her clothes are still there, her purse is still there, her ID is still there, her clothes are there, everything's still there. These are the stories these guys tell. This is what I mean by the man said type of disappearance. And surely, had we been able, she hadn't been found, and eventually I would have spoken to somebody in her family and Dee's family and had them on. There's no doubt that we would have come to the conclusion of what the real conclusion is that, yep, Dale killed Dee. And this is why I continue to tell all of you that when we cover these types of disappearances on Unfound, overwhelmingly, and when I say overwhelmingly, I mean over 90% are exactly like what, the result, probably what happened is very much what went on here. Something goes on, a troubled marriage, domestic violence, something like that, and something goes on. And I will continue to state, unless in a couple of them maybe I could think otherwise. For the most part, I do not believe these guys wake up that day or go into that evening thinking they are going to kill their wives. I think this is something that either it's a troubled marriage, it's a violent marriage. He's slapping her around and just goes one step further that really injures her. And he knows that unless, if he takes her to the hospital, he's going to jail, or he kills her, makes her disappear, and he gets away with it. At some point, these guys make a determination that either I'm going to go to jail, she goes to the hospital and I go to jail, or I kill her outright and I maybe don't go to jail. I think this is the calculation a lot of these guys make. Or it very well may be that this, it just killed her right off. It was an accident, but the accident just killed her. It wasn't like, they get in a fight. He pushes her down the steps. She breaks her leg. And there's no way it's going to be able to cover it up. And everybody's going to know that he did this and he's going to be going to jail. So he goes down there and strangles her to death. I think that happens. So in this situation, am I inclined to believe that Dale meant to kill Dee that day? Maybe did. Maybe this was all planned out. He had the tank ready and everything else. Being that the tank was empty and everything, I suppose you could think that it was pre-planned. Just has this empty tank just sitting there waiting, I guess. Could be. Maybe we just, as we do on Unfound, we tend to get more into the depths of the facts than the Charlie Project, or you have to listen to watch the trial if that's going to be possible to really be able to really be able to determine this. But I still continue to believe that in a large majority of these cases that this is not something that we would call planned. Might have played out as the guys like at the bar or something with his buddies thinking, man, I wish I could make my wife disappear, but it's not something that's a serious thought. And then maybe it does become in the spur of the moment, choosing between himself and his wife, he picked himself. So this is what I'm talking about. But on top of that, I think what this disappearance, this murder of Dee shows us is it shows us once again that the main thing that families should be doing is, if this kind of disappearance happens, where her side of the family, her siblings, her parents, if they're still alive, and this guy's telling some story like I've gone just through. Yeah, I went to bed, and when I got up, she was gone. The number one thing a family should be doing is figuring out a way to get searches done on that property, or any other properties that the guy owned or worked on, anything like that. Because once again, we have a situation, she's found on property that they had together. Now, granted, and given that she had her own agricultural business, I maybe even have to believe that was her tank, not his. It was her business, not his. I don't know how all that was all divided up or anything. But for all those families that may be listening to this and they have a disappearance like this, whether it happened last year or 30 years ago, the number one thing is figuring out a way legally to get onto that property, whatever properties plural, and get them searched. Number one thing. I think we continue to learn over and over again. Seriously, think about how many disappearances that, granted, it's just been a couple, but we have to remember the 34, 35 that have been resolved, not all of them are murders. But of those ones that have been murders, we have two of them at least where the victims are found on the property. We have, of course, Zoe Campos and Andrea Bowman. This should tell us something. Now, why is this? Because these killers have control of that property. It's very easy to do that. Whereas taking Dee's body, putting it in a car, taking it somewhere, could be a lot of forensic stuff to clean up, and you never know what can go wrong. You go down the street, you pull into an intersection, somebody blows a stop sign and hits you. What are you going to do? I mean, car wrecks are happening all the time. They're unpredictable. Do you really want to put yourself in that situation? Even if you decide you're going to go out at 3 a.m, maybe there's some, DUI checkpoint down the street, something weird like that. This is the reason I think so many killers end up putting bodies on their own property. Of course, maybe most famously, John Wayne Gacy. He ran out of room. There were reasons. Control. Convenience. And everything else. And I think we can, like I said, we have to continue to remember this in these types of disappearances. Now, if you're wondering, I realize sometimes I kind of get in this, I name, of course, the most famous case, I guess, is Angela Green. Man said, if you remember, husband claims she went to a psychiatric hospital. Oh, no, wait, she died at the psychiatric hospital. Oh, no, wait, when the police came around, no, she got picked up in a truck and she's gone now. That's probably the most well-known version of what I'm talking about here. But some others maybe that I don't mention as much when I do talk about this type of disappearance. Ellen Sloan disappeared from Polson, Montana. The guy in her life told a similar type of story. Let's not forget about Ellen. Rhonda Smith. Remember that. Remember, yeah, she was an exotic dancer, but she was engaged. Remember, she was driving around her fiance, a co-worker of her fiance's truck. Remember, it was left at that mall. Remember, maybe that's reminding everybody. It's coming back to all of you now. But Rhonda Smith, same type of situation. Danielle Sleeper. Judith Devers Hyder, of course, and then more recently, and one that was on that show on Paramount Plus, and it's getting some new attention, Irene Gakwa. I mean, we've covered so many disappearances like this, with all these guys kind of telling the same story. I just don't know what happened there, even though these guys all had reputations of being control freaks and wanting to know where their women were all the time and everything else. Suddenly, it's just like they're just the most clueless guys in the world. And then to flip it around, we most recently, if we're going to say the woman said, Shannon Collins, just from like a month ago, where, of course, he was seeing another woman, and has to be figured into that, but seemingly he came home, and after he got home, his wife and his kids are just like, I just don't know. He took off. And it very well may be that Shannon is on that property, or some property that was owned by him and his wife, or other people connected to her or something. Very possible. So Dee Warner, maybe you've seen it in the news. I think it's gotten some national coverage. Her body being found and everything. This is what I'm talking about. The man said, and like the main thing we remember for families out there, you got to figure out a way to get on that property legally. You get on there illegally, then forget it. It's all going to be thrown out. Forget it. Don't do that. Legally. Well, I don't care how many loopholes and, lawyering and everything you got to do. But you got to find some legal way to get on to these properties and get them searched. That should be your number one concern. Certainly going out, coming on Unfound, doing media, but when it comes to really searching anything, in my opinion, it's useless searching anywhere else but on properties that could be controlled by that guy, by the killer. I think I just can't say that any more energetically. Kathy says, we covered Dee's disappearance extensively on another program. Dale committed a lot of tax violations and omissions as well. Wonder what we are you talking about, Kathy? Kathy, Dale was forging your signature regarding the business. He was in deep. Was she catching on? She ran the businesses, Kathy. Those were Dee's businesses. She has 4 to 5 kids in her first marriage and 1 daughter with Dale. And Rockford says the jurisdiction from which Angela Green disappeared might as well be international waters for how little care law enforcement demonstrated. Yeah. Yeah, that is Rockford does bring up an agonizing point about these types of disappearances. I think we showed on Unfound is that too often investigators believe the guy. Oh, really? She took off in the middle of the night. You don't say. Oh, really? Okay. You know, the husband says, "Oh yeah, she does this all the time." Oh, okay. Oh yeah, she had some other guy in her life. Oh, she did. What's his name? Oh, I don't know. Oh, okay. That's true. It's totally true. Hello, Fairy. What's up? Fairy just gets in here and says hi. Well, hi to you, Fairy. Hi to you. So, yeah. Now, you know, I want to get into some other things. I could go on and on. I think I have, maybe not recently, but I have my own suspicions about why so many investigators go along with what these guys say, husbands, boyfriends. I have my own thinking on it. I'm just going to leave it out of it tonight, but I have talked about it on this live show before. So there you go. That is the man-said type of disappearance. If anybody has wondered, you know, so it just got right there in the news. All right, now I want to talk about this story. I'll be interested to see in the chat what all of you think of this. Kathy says, we the other programs, The Interview Room, Chris McDonough, former law enforcement detective. Okay. Oh, we the other program. Okay. All right. I want to talk to you about this motorcyclist named Zachary DeMoss. After days of intensive search efforts, Zachary DeMoss, a 24-year-old man from Missoula, Montana, my old roommate from Las Vegas, she was from Billings. A guy I worked with at Star Trek was from Missoula, who had been missing since August 11th, 2024, has been found alive. The Idaho County Sheriff's Office, with the assistance of multiple agencies, located DeMoss on August 16th, 2024, following an SOS call from a Garmin InReach device. On August 12th at 12:08 p.m., Idaho County Sheriff's Office was first notified of DeMoss's disappearance by his employer, who had seen a social media post indicating that DeMoss was missing. DeMoss was last seen riding his black 2000 Kawasaki Vulcan motorcycle along Highway 12 between Kuskia, Idaho, and his home in Montana. His motorcycle was last spotted near milepost 135 around 4:30 p.m. on August 11th by 2 fellow motorcyclists who had been traveling with him. They returned to the area after parking further down the road, but found that DeMoss had vanished. The search, which initially began with Idaho County deputies and the Idaho County Sheriff's posse, expanded over the following days with support from agencies like the Idaho State Police, Idaho Fish and Game, Missoula Life Flight, and the use of drones. Foot searches along the highway and in the river corridor from milepost 75 to milepost 174 were conducted, yet no evidence of a crash or significant clues from DeMoss's cell phone emerged. On August 16th at 1:42 p.m., Idaho County Dispatch received an alert from the International Emergency Response Coordination Center, or IERCC for short, signaling an SOS call from a Garmin InReach device. The first message was unclear about whether there was an emergency, but the second confirmed that the missing biker had been found alive, but was in bad condition. First responders, including Kuskia ambulance, Lowell QRU, Life Flight, an Idaho County deputy and Idaho State Police were dispatched to the area. Upon arrival, Zachary DeMoss was found alert and conscious, having survived by drinking water from a nearby creek. He was promptly airlifted by Life Flight to St. Patrick Hospital in Missoula for treatment. Sheriff Ulmer expressed his gratitude to all agencies, businesses, and individuals involved in the search and rescue efforts. The sheriff's office extended their best wishes to DeMoss and his family for his recovery, and they thanked everyone for their tireless work in locating him. Of course, what is left out of this story is what the hell happened? And having checked a variety of stories, there have been a lot of stories written about Zachary DeMoss being found. Not one states what happened. Not one even gives a guess as to what happened. So I'm going to ask all of you, what do you think happened? What do you think happened to Zachary DeMoss? Remember, he's riding with two other guys. Their story is, I guess, that they got split up somehow. They went down the road. They were expecting him to come up behind them. He didn't come up behind them. They turn around. They go back looking for him. Can't find him. Now remember, this is a motorcycle, not a car. And somehow Zachary DeMoss survives out in the woods in Montana for 4 days. And it's not until that time, 4 days later, that this Garmin emergency, whatever it was called, I have to admit, I've never heard of this thing before. Garmin InReach device. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. I am not. It wasn't until that went off. Does that go off like a satellite or something? I don't even know. That they were able to figure out where he was and saved his life. And when they came upon him, he was drinking water out of a creek, which sounds like the most disgusting thing ever. You know me, I'm not an outdoors guy. I'm not a camping guy. I was just talking to my nephew, John, about this yesterday, and he was talking about going camping with his wife and a bunch of other people in Oregon, like in tents and sleeping like on a mattress that's on the ground and everything. I'm like, forget that. So what do you think happened here? I didn't say anything about his motorcycle. Did they find his motorcycle, Ferry? In this article, it doesn't say. But what I'm trying to figure out is, how does a guy get lost when he's just going along a road? Even if he was in a wreck, let's say, obviously he was still alive. And even if he flew off the road, and how far did he fly off the road? A mile? What, a couple feet? 50 feet? And it seems he was able to make his way to his creek. He couldn't find his way back to the main road where a car or motorcycle going by would see him. Now, of course, the agonizing thing about this is I don't think we're ever going to be told what happened. This kind of reminds me of, I remember that story it was some years ago. It was certainly after Unfound got started, I think. Remember the Canadian who came down to the United States to ski, and he was like up in the New England states, maybe in Vermont or New Hampshire or something, and then he went missing. And then days later, it got out that he was found in California, and he claimed he couldn't remember how he got there. Remember that story? Some of you remember that story? That's one of the stories you don't forget. And we never were told this guy's name. We're going to never know that guy's name. Nothing. And If he's found in New York, okay, California, went vacation in New England states, and ended up being found in California. I think he called home or something. And I guess the story was he couldn't remember how he got there. Okay. What do you think happened to Zachary DeMoss on this trip? Remember how, it's 4 days. He's missing. They went and looked for him. All these people looking all over. And I think it's a very good question about what happened to his motorcycle. All we know is he was found drinking from a creek. So what does everybody think about this? Did he have an undisclosed mental health concern, maybe, Stephanie? I think that's a very good guess. I'm not saying that's what I think. I'll let you know what I think in a moment. But I think that's a real good possibility. Thank you, Stephanie. Don't know about the motorcycle. Lisa, I think he wanted to disappear. I don't know really, but with just postpartum depression many years ago, I almost walked off on a business trip. Wow. Okay, Lisa. I'm glad you didn't. Kathy, was Zachary higher paranoid, kind of like David Kallenberger? It does kind of remind you of David Kallenberger, doesn't it, Kathy? And more than just the motorcycle. It's very heavily forested in that area. I can understand that, Ferry, but like I said, the way these guys who were with him explaining it, Zachary didn't know what direction they went. What are we talking about here? Kelly, hello, Kelly. The Garmin InReach are great. My brother uses it when kayaking in remote areas. All right, Kelly knows what the Garmin. I have to admit, I don't think I've ever heard of it before, Kelly. Rockford, my theory is that he was goofing off or did something dangerous, but he's going to choose not to discuss it with authorities. I think that's a good possibility too, Rockford. Though it's still kind of hard to understand. I can understand a stunt going wrong, but what exactly kind of stunt are we talking about here? And why would he not let these guys who are riding with him let him know what's going on? Or maybe they knew. But it really, these guys really go along with something. Of course, guys go along with friends doing stupid stuff all the time. But I can't imagine them keeping tight-lipped on it for 4 days. Ferry, I think it odd that there were so many agencies looking for him. That very well could be odd. Maybe they had nothing else to do. Ferry, I don't know, out there in the middle of nowhere, out there, maybe. Kelly, we need to wait for more details, but my guess would be drugs. Yes, Kelly. Ferry, Ed, I hate to say, but it happens a lot out here because it's really easy to do. Ferry, he walked off, in my opinion. I gotta believe this is drug related. I have no proof of that. Certainly nothing in any of the stories, at least to this point, have said that. But maybe as a guy, not that I've ever done anything like this. I'm not into that stuff. I've never been into this stuff. But this is a situation where guys are out on their motorcycles and pretending it's 1969 again, and one of them's Peter Fonda, and there's Jack Nicholson. And is this what's going on? And Dennis Hopper, and they're just cruising and doing this and doing that. This is something that comes to mind. And yeah, they're going down a road, and those shrooms or something kicks in, and the guy just decides to take a dirt trail on his bike that's really just meant for the street and nothing else. And he gets up there and gets lost, and the bike isn't made for the terrain, and he wrecks. And then, of course, the shroom goes away, and it's like, where the hell am I? Could be. This is where my mind goes with this. Rockford says, could be as simple as him trying to mess with his friends by taking a side road shortcut that he thought would lead him back to the main road ahead of his friends. Could be. Then I start thinking about, well, why didn't if this is why did it take him 4 days to hit this Garmin device, as Kelly is explaining to us how it works? Or something? Did he wreck his bike, stroll off once again? Did he have a concussion? I guess it's possible. Was he wearing a helmet? Of course, here in Florida, you don't have to wear helmets to wear bikes and to ride bikes, and we know a lot of these motorcycle crashes, the helmet's not going to help anyway. So it very well could be he was messing with his friends. I'm just wondering what went all wrong after that. That, of course, out there, maybe there's no phone reception. But once again, I start thinking, well, what if he's in danger? Why doesn't he hit this Garmin device earlier? And it says, I mean, in reading the article, would they tell us if he had a broken leg or something? I don't know, but it says, what did it say at the top of the article? It's been found alive. I think I think that a couple of them did, like I said, there were many articles written on this that it sounded like he was in pretty bad shape. I mean, if you're drinking water from a stream, then. But was he drinking from that stream because he was thirsty, or was he drinking from that creek because he thought it was a water fountain? That's the question. It certainly could be misadventure, but I have to admit that's not where my mind first went regarding at least the way this story is written. It very well could be he was playing, a practical joke, and something went wrong. I just have a hard time understanding why, he didn't walk back out to the main road or didn't hit this Garmin device earlier. Like I said, I'm thinking this is drugs. Shrooms. Yeah, Ferry says, yes, shrooms, LOL. But this is why, once again, this is why disappearances are so hard to pin down. What if Zachary DeMoss goes missing, for a year, 5 years, 10 years? Now, of course, it doesn't sound like these other guys who were riding with him had anything to do with his disappearance. But if this disappearance had lasted for 10 years, under the same circumstances, would we not be suspicious of these other riders? We would be. We all would be. We very well may be wrong. But this just shows you how such a fine line this all is. That the circumstances, think about it. We covered disappearance. 3 guys are motorcycle riding, and one of them goes missing, and the 2 other motorcycle riders go to police and say, yeah, we were riding with this 3rd guy, and he just disappeared. I mean, you talk about a thin story. Even though that is what seems like happening. Maybe these guys are lying. Maybe more of this. Maybe the truth about all of this is going to come out. Once again, I don't think we'll ever know. Unless somebody wants to track down Zachary DeMoss once he gets out of the hospital and he feels like being truthful about all this. Maybe somebody will do that. I'd love to know. It might help us, analyze disappearances as a whole or something. But this is a story that caught my attention. Kelly, the person needs to SOS the Garmin. My brother has texting capabilities. You pay a subscription for the texting. Yeah, theories could be combined as drugs often lead to a poorly conceived stunts. Is shroom biking a thing? Serious question. I don't know. Not sure if it would be possible, but I'm old and boring. Me too. I was young and boring too, Rockford. Not only am I old and boring now, but I was young and boring too. The reason I maybe bring up mushrooms is because, as I've heard, you do them, maybe nothing happens for a while, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're like in full bloom. And then they go away, and then they could come back again. This is what I've read about. That's what I've heard people talk about. And in fact, pilot who was in the jump seat of that plane somewhere in the western United States. And he wasn't flying, but he was getting a ride somewhere. So he was like in the jump seat, what they call the jump seat in the cockpit. And right in the middle of the flight, he tried to turn the engines off. Remember? All of you remember that? That was from the effects of mushrooms. Look it up. So this is, like I said, this is kind of why maybe that comes to my mind. And that guy, by the way, that guy is going to jail for that. That he's a pilot. He wasn't the pilot of the plane. He was just getting a ride. That he tried to shut off those engines, and luckily the pilots in charge stopped him. That guy has been charged with like 54 counts of attempted murder. Or however many passengers were on the plane, and it was quite a few. That's how many charges of attempted murder have been leveled against that guy. You can look it up. Bad. No, what he was thinking, everything, I have no idea. And even when they stopped him and put him back in the passenger compartment and they got to keep an eye on him, he tried to open the door and jump out of the plane. So this is why my mind goes to, why do I think this guy, or rest of them, was doing something like that? That's why it comes to my mind. So that's all I'm going to be able to get to as far as stories, but at least I covered the stories that are featured in the headlines tonight. I'm not going to get what I mentioned before is just weird ago. Like a week ago, I mentioned to my assistants, it's so weird that I haven't seen a lot of diver stories recently. Divers finding cars with people in them. And like the next day, 2 stories popped up. And I'm not going to have a chance to get to them. But it's so weird how that happened. Because, I keep tabs on these kind of things just in the periphery. And I was like, it just doesn't seem like I've read any stories like that. And I say it, next day, it just popped up. So it's so weird. So that was something that was on my mind that I didn't get to tonight. And what else didn't I get to tonight? Oh, I didn't get to Jill's story. Jill, who's in the chat sometimes, a professor that she had in school, and she actually did, I guess, some sort of internship for something with him, murdered his wife today or yesterday. And the ironic thing about it is, as Jill was telling me, when she was working for this guy, this professor, or assisting him or whatever, one of the jobs that he gave her job was to watch YouTube videos and document personality narcissistic disorder behavior from Fortune 500 CEOs. The professor that gave her that assignment is the guy that murdered his wife. His name is David Zhu, ZHU. So Jill, thank you if you're still out there. Thank you for telling me about that. You talk about irony. He has her do that as part of a project, and then years later he ends up murdering his wife. That is something. All right, let's get to this Friday. The interview hasn't been done, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen tomorrow. We're going to be covering, you worked for him. All right. Okay, Jill. There's Jill, everybody. Everybody wondering who Jill is. Jill just posted in the chat. Yeah, she sent me that article first thing this morning. That's the first thing I saw when I got up this morning, I think, Jill, because I got up late. But, yeah, you worked for him. Okay, you weren't in the you actually worked for him. Okay, thank you, Jill. This Friday, we're going to be featuring the disappearance of Marlo Chris Gully. Chris to everybody who knew him best. This is a disappearance that comes to us from Chicago, Illinois. He went missing on October 9th, 2017. And this is feeling like a landmark episode for Unfound. The reason that is that there is every reason to believe that Chris's disappearance is connected to another unsolved disappearance, the disappearance of Joanna Wright, and 2 unsolved murders in Chicago. And the thing is, these 2 murders and the 2 disappearances all happened within a block of each other over a year and a half. So starting, I think, maybe back in 2015, there was a guy, his name was Keyshawn. He was murdered. 3 weeks later, his girlfriend was found deceased, almost certainly murdered. Then about 6 months after that, in that same area, Joanna Wright goes missing after being abducted off a street in broad daylight. And then in the next year, in 2017, Chris is out with his buddy Alan. Alan's story is that there was a woman who came along whose name is Brandy that Chris was supposed to be meeting. Alan's story is that Chris left with this Brandy and Chris was never seen again. Chris Brandy's story is that she was never there. So you can start looking all of that up. Keyshawn Ward is his name, W-A-R-D. His girlfriend, Shantae, who was found dead like 3 weeks later, his name was Shantae. I forget her last name, I didn't have it in my notes. But Joanna Wright goes missing. She is on the Charlie Project. And then this Friday, the disappearance of Marlo, Chris Gully, his mother Melody, and a woman who has been helping her. Her name is Stormy, not Stormy Dorsey, who we all know, but Stormy Dean are the guests. And I will be doing that tomorrow. So there you go. Like I said, this just feels like a landmark episode because it's pretty sure this is all connected for some reason that is unclear. So that's it. That is the episode of Unfound Live for tonight. You've all been spectacular. By the way, I never did bring this up tonight. Did you give this video a thumbs up? Did you subscribe? Did you hit the join button below? Did you tonight without me telling you? Did you do that without me telling you? Before you leave, give it a thumbs up. Would appreciate it. Thank you. And that's all I have for tonight. This Unfound Live for August 19th of 2024. Keep your heads on swivels out there. Charlie, say hi to the kids for me. Good night.